publishing all sorts of research and studies and, talking about the collapse of ecosystems and things like that. But it was with the emergence of things like climate communications that helped to translate that research into, clear and consistent messaging that helped people change their everyday actions and also help institutions set clearer goals and change also institutional power. And so when I think about greening the internet and internet health, which is a framework that Mozilla uses, it's like, how might we also, a research question might be like, how are we creating those narratives that are building on science? We have science that talks about the emissions and things like that from the internet, but it's helping to create these other narratives that are encouraging action in a, in a clear and consistent way.
Definitely. Do you feel that there's a momentum towards that at this point? Like in terms of the work that you do and the networks that you're a part of, are you a witness to that?
It definitely seems like it's picking. I mean, again, I'm also, aware of my own limitations and blind spots, but even seeing some names that are in this call of people I know who are doing really exciting work, different networks of people I think are coalescing. And also, I think we're seeing also more funders getting interested in this. Again, speaking from the Mozilla Foundation, we've also started to say like, this is an area that's worth also in putting more resources towards. And we're living in a collection of crises right now. And I think one thing that a result of that has been a lot of maybe people in the tech sector who've been a little bit like heads down at their desk have like looked up and been like, wait, there's a lot of things that we need to do differently. And the climate is like one of those places where some of those all come to the head. So at least in my kind of anecdotal observations, I think there's been a change of people who are working kind of in an everyday on internet policies, on building technology, seeing these intersections, and then also realizing how reliant we are on the internet, especially that's coming through in the pandemic, and how if we're so reliant on this system, we might need it to also be sustainable too.
Definitely. I mean, I think the internet is often sort of characterized as sort of the great equalizer. And how, what that translates to in the context of that today, and October 2020, is really interesting and is changing. I wonder if you could speak to sort of, if you have any information or insight into the internet and its impact on other sectors and its ability to sort of mitigate some of the climate risk or challenges that happen in other sectors.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that's been part of the narrative of digitization in general, has been like it's cleaner and more inclusive. And I think we're seeing where that is fraying a lot. So it's like on the one hand true in some ways. I do think things like access to information and communications is like, there are a lot of efficiencies that have been gained thanks to the internet. But we've also been able to use the internet to speed up extraction and like extractive practices, which leads to more inequalities. And so I think that's maybe a nuance or a layer of experience that at least I've been involved in kind of open internet circles for a while. And like this kind of, just because it's open is not always, it's not automatically that it's going to be good or access is not enough. Like, I think there's kind of some of these realizations that are really landing now. And so I don't have at hand, maybe people on this call also have better examples of some of those efficiency gains, but I guess now I read them with a little bit more of a skeptical eye, like, okay, we have gained this, but we know that often when we have these gains, we have rebound effects and we actually end up using more resources or excluding more people or concentrating more wealth. So what have we really gained?
Right. What have we really,
yeah.
Yeah, it's a really interesting time. I wonder, just to kind of get into, before we get into question and answer and things like that, but I wonder if you could just speak a little bit more about what you have going on at Mozilla Foundation and some of your other projects that are related to this topic.
Yeah, I'd be happy to, I'll put the links in the chat too if people want to check it out afterwards. But I guess the biggest effort is directly on this topic is Mozilla launched a sustainability program about, I guess, a little over a year ago. And we're just about to publicly launch, announce our own, had to do our own greenhouse gas emissions inventory, which is very revealing. And so I can't speak to that just yet until that's out, but one spends a lot more on making digital products than one thinks. And then within that, there's a lot of efforts to do some of this kind of positive imagining and scenario building, and also working with other organizations and networks to talk about, well, where are some pockets where there are kind of flourishing practices that we want to better enable or adapt or understand. And so there's a magazine project that I'm working on with some other organizations that kind of tries to help get a glimpse into that. And then some policy recommendations we had working with, particularly in the EU, around their trustworthy AI agenda and how we might add climate justice to that. So yeah, I'll share some links for people who want to learn more. And I know so I'm just seeing some names on the calls. There's some really great networks and stuff too, for people who want to also get involved or learn more or connect with other people who are really focusing on the intersection of climate and tech.
Awesome. And then I guess my sort of final formal question for you would be also, as someone who works for a foundation, do you have any advice for folks who are submitting proposals or thinking about it? Sort of some do's or don'ts, or quick wins, if you have any advice on that front.
Oh yeah, it's hard. I guess if you knock and the door doesn't open this time, that's not no forever. And that I think one thing that I find it always helps to, at least the proposals that I read in my work, that are balancing things that are like both having a clear sense of the change that you want to have happen, and then it being grounded in something that's kind of knowable, practical, understandable, achievable in a year or two with the resources you're requesting. And so I find that's always a hard tension, because you're like, okay, change the world, and then here's my small project to do it. But if you're able to make those links in a way that a non-expert or someone who may not be so familiar with your work, if you're really able to make that case, in a clear way, I find that those are the proposals that I understand the most and seem to be successful, because they've really thought out, how this is one step on maybe a larger effort.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And I'll kind of check back in with Mabel to see how we're doing on time, and then also if we have any questions or things that we want to get into.
Sure. And we're doing well on time. We do have another 15 or 20 minutes. And I do have a question here that came in from Carolina. Carolina, do you want to ask your question, or should I read it out?
Yes, no, I can ask my question. Thank you for, it's a very interesting discussion. My question would be, how do you think, how do you believe gender and of course the fight for gender equality ends up intersecting with the construction of a greener internet? Thank you.
Thanks so much. That's a really interesting question. Michelle, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think I've learned that there are climate policies that center on women and girls and improving the conditions for women and girls tend to be, in general, good and sustaining practices. So I think UN Women has had a lot of great research around that. So I can, from there, imagining all sorts of intersections between how are we improving the experience of women and girls online, that also might enable so maybe others have more pithy or immediate examples, but I think there's a long history of policies that center on improving the conditions of women that have actually benefited economically and gender inclusive, and also on a sustainability perspective.
Yeah, and I think I would add, that climate impacts and effects really sort of exacerbate inequality that already exists, right? So there's, here's just another layer of marginalization. Here's another layer of oppression that you have to deal with. And so I think if anything, it really just would highlight and intensify the types of things that you're dealing with as a woman. So climate, for example, if you are limited to where you can live and the types of housing that you have access to because of your income, because you're a single parent, the impacts of climate, particularly like in the US, regions like low-lying floodplains and things like that typically are where public housing or social housing buildings are constructed because that land is cheap. So, I think it just sort of amplifies those levels of oppression and things like that. So, but that's a great question. And I think that gets to, these intersectional approaches to really thinking about the issues and ways that we can sort of come to some real interesting solutions. Mabel, was there another question? I hope that was a good answer.
Yes, it
Nothing
was. Thank you.
else. Yeah, nothing has come in yet. Oh, there is one here. Maybe I'll just, for the sake of time. Oh, okay. They're all coming in. Okay, let me read this first one here. There's a question here around how do you see the significance of the online gig economy? An internet platform can facilitate people who have limited mobility to participate in the labor market with more flexibility. So how do you see the gig economy playing into all of this?
I think that's a great research question. I think that's the kind of thing we want to know. I mean, I have some ideas about what that means and could be, but I think it also looks different and feels different in different parts of the world, and who has access and who controls the platforms that those gigs are created on. What sort of labor rights and things around those platforms, what they look like in different places in the world are very different. So I think that's definitely something that would be worthwhile to explore, and is a good question. Around how we can again like reclaim the future, like digital futures and digital economies, like how we can reshape those narratives, I think is really important. Michelle, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I think that's a great a great research question, as you said, Shayna. Let's dig into it more.
Cool.
And there is a question in the chat from Amanda asking, for our proposals, do we need to identify research specialists to partner with or fund, as the data is needed for all efforts? I hope I captured that okay, Amanda. Feel free to also speak up.
I think for us, sorry, Amanda, did you want to clarify?
Yeah, I realize that probably wasn't very clear. I guess one of the things is for Women Who Code, we don't necessarily have research expertise in-house. And so when we're thinking, but we definitely need the research to advance our work. We want more data-driven decisions around how we advance things. And we think it's a good alignment for some partnerships. And this has come up in the past, but I wasn't really sure how we should do that in our proposals. Would it be better to build that expertise in-house and think about that? Or would it be okay to partner with maybe people who have more research expertise? If that makes sense.
It does, and that's a good question. I think what I'll say in response is whatever makes sense to you. Again, we understand and have designed the programs so that hopefully it's accessible not just to academic researchers or traditional academic researchers, but folks who are working in all different types of sectors and working on different types of things. If you feel like you don't have a particular expertise, or that you wouldn't be able to necessarily propose or follow through on the work, like the actual research, then absolutely I would recommend that you partner with someone who does have that expertise and who could help you sort of guide your thinking and just the implementation of that. But again, it's up to you. I think one of the really cool things that we're doing in terms of the statement of interest process is that it really is, just tell us what you're doing or what you want to do. And from there, we can work together to shape what a full proposal looks like. So you don't have to have all of the answers at this particular moment in time. We can work with you, we can work with other collaborators. We're looking to hold co-creation workshops where we can talk through some of the issues and some of the questions so that we really sort of develop a robust proposal that everyone feels good about and is confident about moving forward.
That's really fantastic. That's great to hear. Thank you so much.
Yeah, sure, no problem. Mabel?
Yeah, there's a question here from Chris. If you're applying as an existing NGO, do all the researchers involved need to be postgraduates or higher?
No, they do not. So for independent researchers, meaning particular people who independently wish to pursue a research project, they should have postgraduate degrees and patents and/or publications. But if you work for a research organization, a think tank, a university, or something like that, no, not everyone that works on the project needs to meet that requirement.
And then a follow-up from Natalie was, how many projects do you anticipate inviting past the concept submission stage? And how many do you anticipate funding?
Yeah, so one of the wonderful things about this whole program is that it's brand new. And we are learning as we do it. The call for, or the request for submissions is open. There's no end date. And so we really just want to get a sense of what's out there, what the need is, what folks are interested in learning about. And we'll let that sort of guide our decisions around what happens and what funds. So I don't know that I can give you a specific answer at this point. We are looking to make some decisions before the end of the year. So the sooner you submit, the better. But again, these will be continuous and on a rolling basis moving into 2021. So there's no real cutoff or deadline, and we're flexible in our approach to the things that we want to fund. So it really depends on what comes through and what fits and aligns to the objectives of the program. So I can't, so the answer is I'm not going to say.
Then a few more here. Senka, and excuse if I'm messing up people's names. Can a group of independent researchers apply as a team? That's one. And then another one from Kim, do you expect that our proposal can address two aspects of the program, for example, sustainability and economy, or should it just focus on one? Let's start with those two.
Okay, yes. So for the first one, yes, absolutely. A team of researchers can get together. That's absolutely what we're looking for. Collaboration across disciplines, across organizations. Absolutely. The more collaborators you have and the more sort of intersectional that project is, the better. So absolutely, if you have that. And then the second question was around, sorry, what was it again, Mabel?
It was, can a proposal address two aspects, or should it just focus on one?
Yes, absolutely. So because these sort of topics don't exist alone, and I think part of what Michelle and I have been talking about is just the many ways that you can look at and think about this particular issue. We know that there's not going to be, there's not one, it's not siloed, and there's not one way to address or answer. In our system, we do set it up to have a specific focus. So you do have to select one or the other, but that doesn't mean that in the actual research project that you could address multiple sort of challenges or scenarios or topics or thematic areas, but it should be aligned at least to one of them.
Okay, and I see in the chat, David had a similar question. So I hope that answers your question, David, around if you can pick two topics. Then Amanda asks, if you're interested for a program that will open in 2021, so for the next phase, should we send it in now or wait until the program formally opens? For example, for the digital divide research theme.
Yeah, so I would wait for that. We've designed it to sort of launch the first two and then the next two next year, just to give us our team, a very small and lean foundation team, some space and time to really grapple with and think through the types of proposals and submissions that are coming through, and then also to make adjustments to the program as needed. So I think, you know, I don't want you to necessarily not do it, but also I don't want you to struggle to sort of make it fit, you know, a square into a round hole if it doesn't fit. So, but those other thematic areas will be launched next year in April. So I would say yes, if you have something that's specific to the digital divide, then that would be the time to submit that.
And then one more here around reporting processes. Amanda was asking, can you talk a little about how you expect reporting processes to look like over a hypothetical 2-year grant period? And are there previous projects you might point us to get an idea of what we should plan for?
Yeah, we're trying to be flexible again in our approach. This is a brand new program, so we don't have any previous grantees or previous sort of things that we can point you to. I will say that in terms of reporting, we're pretty creative with how we do that. Yes, there are financial reports and spending and things that we require and will request on a sort of interim basis. But in general, it's more about the learning and what you're learning. And so one of the things that we've been doing with some of our other programs is bringing grantees together to talk through what some of the successes have been, what some of the challenges have been, so that folks can sort of build synergies amongst each other as a cohort and sort of learn from each other. So I think that there's a lot of value for us in that type of reporting, if you will. It's not really reporting, but really just like sharing and checking in and supporting and learning from each other. So I think, you know, beyond just the traditional financial and interim reports, those would be the other requirements.
Okay, and there's one here around, does the foundation support indirect cost recovery? Yes, which
Yes.
I'm assuming is, okay, go ahead.
Yes, we do. We do have allowable terms for indirect costs. All of that information is on our website. There's, I think it's under the eligibility, actually, no, it's in our sort of development of a proposal section of our website that has specific fiscal requirements and things like that. If you have questions about eligible or allowable expenses and sort of what the percentages are around that. But yes, we do.
Great. And then one question here, we'll probably do just one or two more around, Natalie asked, knowing that Internet Society Foundation has a global vision, should submissions be globally focused or are regionally focused projects acceptable? For example, a project focused on cities in New Jersey, but that can be scaled in the future.
Yes, this is, it's open, whatever your capacity is as an organization or as a researcher, that's what we would hope that you would submit. So if you are a global organization with a global reach and are able to do global studies, great. If you're a more localized organization who has more local focus, fantastic. We don't have any stipulations or requirements for geographic areas or anything like that. It really is about the question that you're asking and how that sort of responds to or aligns to the objectives of the program.
Great. I don't see any more in the chat. Any other questions people might have while I just look at the chat one last time?
Thanks, Mabel. You've been like super on top of it.
Thank you. And I love that I see people making connections over the chat too, which is great. It's nice to see that collaboration.
Awesome.
And I'll just remind people again, and I'll put it in the chat, the link to our website, as well as the link to the program page with specific information about the research program. I'll drop those into the chat. But if there are no more questions for now, maybe I will hand it over to Shayna and Michelle just to close.
Sure. Michelle, I just want to invite you to give any sort of final thoughts or any little nuggets that you'd like to share with us as we close out.
just an appreciation for the people who joined the call and who are interested in working on this topic, and also to Mabel and Shayna for hosting it. And also the idea that you're offering a co-creation step in the proposal process is amazing. And so for applicants, like definitely take advantage of the fact that that's actually a huge opportunity to actually do something in collaboration with the program officer to develop an idea. So yeah, I'm really excited about this research program. Thank you. And looking forward to how we might green the internet together.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And really just want to give a shout out to Michelle, who's been wonderful and sort of a really nice thought partner as well as we sort of roll out this program, and appreciate you for your support and give you lots of flowers. Thank you. And thanks for the conversation today. I think it was really interesting and lovely. And I hope that we can, potentially have that translate into something, as we go along. So definitely want to invite people to find Michelle online and follow her and the things that she's doing. And then also to invite you, if you have additional questions about the research program, you can email research@isocfoundation.org or reach out to me directly, or Mabel as well. And just again, to appreciate all of you, and we look forward to reading your submissions. And with that, I think we'll sort of put up a final sort of screen share. We'll leave the call open for a bit, just so folks can capture links and things in the chat. And if someone has any direct messages or things that they want to send to Michelle or myself, we'll probably be online for another maybe 5 minutes. That sounds good. Okay, thanks everyone.
Thanks everyone.
Bye, thank you.